She leaned closer across the fence. Her voice low enough that it felt like it was meant only for me. You would have been the husband I always wanted. For a moment I froze. The air around us seemed to stop moving. The evening crickets falling silent in my ears. I couldn't tell if she was teasing me, testing me, or saying something she had carried for years. All I knew was that my chest tightened, and I didn't know how to respond. Her name is Emma. She's my neighbor, 47 years old, and the kind of woman who makes people turn their heads without meaning to. Not because she tries, she doesn't. It's in the way she carries herself. The way she looks at you like she's already 2 steps ahead in the conversation. I moved into this neighborhood a little over a year ago, renting a small house while I tried to figure out where my life was going. At 28, I felt like I was supposed to have the answers already. I didn't. We started with small waves in the driveway, then brief conversations about trash day, weather, or the sound of her dog barking too loud. But slowly, almost without noticing, I found myself drawn to her porch in the evenings. She'd sit outside with a glass of wine. I'd lean against the fence with a beer, and we'd talk about nothing. Yet it always felt like something. That night, though, was different. The sun had already dipped, leaving the sky painted with shades of orange and purple. I was telling her about a frustrating day at work, about how I sometimes wondered if I'd chosen the wrong path. She listened without interruption, her eyes calm and steady. Then, just as I finished, she said those words, and it felt like the world shifted under my feet. I laughed nervously, brushing it off. But inside my head was chaos. Did she mean it? Was it a slip of the tongue? Or was she letting me peek into a part of her heart she rarely showed? The thought scared me and it thrilled me. The truth is I've always noticed her more than I should. Her laughter when she talks to her sister on the phone. The way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's thinking. The quiet strength in her eyes when she carries groceries alone. Refusing help even when her arms are full. She's not just beautiful. She's magnetic. And now with one whispered line, she had pulled me into something I wasn't sure I was ready for. I tried to change the subject, asking about her day. She smiled faintly as if she knew exactly what I was doing. It was fine, she said, but her tone carried weight. She didn't push, didn't explain herself. She just left those words hanging between us like smoke in the air. Later, when I went inside, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying it over and over. You would have been the husband I always wanted. Why would she say that to me? Why now? Part of me wanted to believe it was nothing, just a passing comment. But another part of me, the part that noticed every detail about her, told me it meant more. I stared at the ceiling and wondered, what if she really meant it? What if she was telling me something she'd never told anyone else? And if that was true, what was I supposed to do about it? The next evening, I found myself lingering outside longer than usual. I told myself I was just watering the plants, but I knew the truth. I was waiting for her. Sure enough, Emma came out onto her porch, a cardigan draped over her shoulders, holding a cup of tea instead of her usual glass of wine. She gave me that half smile that always made my chest tighten. You looked restless yesterday, she said, settling into her chair. Did you ever get any sleep? I almost laughed at how easily she saw through me. I shrugged, admitting I hadn't. I kept thinking about what you said. Her gaze didn't flinch. She sipped her tea, then set it down. I know, maybe I shouldn't have said it, but sometimes things slip when you've carried them too long. That was the first time she began to let me into her world. She told me she had been divorced for almost a decade. Her husband had left not just her but their daughter too, chasing a younger woman across the country. She raised her daughter on her own, put her through college, built a stable life piece by piece. Now her daughter lived states away with her own career, her own circle. Emma stayed here in the same house, surrounded by people who smiled politely at her, but never really asked how she was doing. I've gotten used to silence, she said softly, but sometimes silence feels heavier than noise. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. There was something in the way her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from years of holding things back. It made me see her differently, not as the confident, unshakable woman I'd built up in my mind, but as someone human, someone who carried loneliness like a shadow. The conversation was interrupted when my buddy Ethan pulled into the driveway. He rolled down his window and smirked. "Man, are you really spending your nights gossiping with the neighbor? She's almost twice your age." I felt my jaw tighten. Emma lowered her eyes, pretending not to hear. Ethan waved and drove off before I could respond, but his words hung in the air like a stain. "Ignore him," I said quickly, but Emma only smiled, though it was faint and tired. "People will always say things. That's why I don't usually let anyone close." Her honesty cut deeper than Ethan's joke. She wasn't wrong. A part of me wondered if she had been testing me all along to see if I'd back away when pressure came from the outside. Later, I replayed the moment in my head. Ethan's laughter, Emma's steady gaze, and I realized something. Every word she said, every piece of her story only pulled me closer. I wasn't sure if I was falling into something dangerous or something real, but I knew one thing: couldn't walk away. Not now. Whispers move faster than truth in a small neighborhood. By the end of the week, I could feel the change in the air. Neighbors who once waved now gave tight smiles. Conversations hushed when I walked by. It didn't take long to realize the reason. People had seen me with Emma. It started simple. A quick coffee together in the diner downtown. A ride home when it began to rain. Each moment harmless, at least to us, but to others it was fuel. And once Ava got hold of the story, it spread like fire. Olivia, the woman across the street, didn't bother hiding her disapproval. One morning while I took out the trash, she called over, her arms crossed. "You're young, Liam. Don't waste your life playing house with someone who should know better." Her husband, Noah, stood behind her, silent, but nodding as if her words were scripture. I wanted to snap back, but the words lodged in my throat. Instead, I turned away, carrying the weight of her judgment like a stone. That night, Emma and I sat in her kitchen again. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound between us. She traced circles on the rim of her glass, then finally spoke. "They're talking, aren't they?" I nodded. "Olivia, Ava, maybe more." Emma sighed, her shoulders sinking. I told myself I wouldn't care anymore, that I've lived too long to worry about whispers. But it's different now. "I don't want to see you dragged through the mud because of me." Her words stung because they echoed the same thought I had tried to bury. But when I looked at her, the tired strength in her eyes, the vulnerability she tried to hide, I couldn't accept the idea of walking away. "You didn't drag me anywhere," I said quietly. "I walked here." She looked up surprised, and for a moment, the tension in her face softened, but just as quickly it returned. "We either stay true to ourselves, Liam, or we let them decide for us. And if we let them, then this ends now." Her ultimatum wasn't harsh. It was weary, like someone who had fought this battle before. I didn't answer right away. My chest tightened, my thoughts a blur of fear and defiance. When I finally left her house that evening, the street was quiet. But as I passed Olivia's window, I caught the faintest movement of her curtain, watching, always watching. I closed my door behind me, the silence of my own house pressing in. And it hit me. Maybe the danger wasn't in their whispers. Maybe the real danger was how much I wanted her. How far I was willing to go to hold on to something that already felt impossible to let go of. The storm came without warning. By evening, thunder rolled over the rooftops and the wind rattled the windows like impatient hands. When the lights flickered and finally went out, I wasn't surprised by the knock on my door. Emma stood there, rain clinging to her hair and sweater. "The power's out," she said softly. I didn't want to sit alone. I let her in, and together we lit candles, their warm glow dancing against the walls. The storm outside was loud, but inside the world felt hushed, fragile. We sat at her kitchen table, the air between us thick with unspoken thoughts. For a long time, neither of us spoke. She broke the silence first. When I was married, I played the part one thought was expected of me. The perfect wife, the strong mother. But inside, I was fading. I wasn't seeing James. Not really. And when he left, I thought I'd lost everything. But maybe I'd lost nothing at all because there was nothing real left to lose. Her words cut deeper than the thunder outside. I didn't interrupt. She looked at the flame between us, her face softened by the light. I'm afraid, she continued, voice trembling now, afraid that it's too late for me to want more, that I'll scare you away, that maybe I already have. I leaned forward, my chest tight. You think you're the only one afraid? I've run from anything real for years because I was convinced I wasn't enough. But sitting here right now, this feels more real than anything I've ever known. And that terrifies me too. Her eyes found mine, and in them I saw something raw, something unguarded. Slowly, she reached across the table, her hand trembling as it brushed mine. That single touch carried more weight than any embrace I'd known. Outside, the storm crashed harder, wind howling through the trees. And then through the rain, faint voices rose, sharp, accusing Ava and Olivia, standing under umbrellas across the street, pointing toward Emma's glowing window. Their silhouettes were clear, their words carried by the storm. See, look at them. Emma's grip on my hand faltered. They'll never stop, she whispered. They'll tear us apart before this even begins. Something in me snapped. I shook my head. Let them talk. They don't know you. They don't know me. They don't get to decide what this is. Her lips parted, her eyes searching mine. Then tell me, Liam, she whispered, her voice breaking against the thunder. What is this? The question hung in the air, heavier than the storm. I wanted to answer, but the truth was tangled inside me, unformed, fragile. All I knew was that the moment we let go, everything would collapse. And for the first time, I realized there was no turning back. By the weekend, the storm had passed, but its aftermath lingered. Fallen branches littered the streets and power crews worked through the night. Yet, the real storm was still brewing inside the neighborhood itself. The whispers had grown into open accusations, and by Saturday evening, the town hall was packed. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to hide, to let the whole mess burn itself out. But Emma insisted. If we don't face them, she said, her voice steady, but her hands trembling, they'll think we're guilty of something we've never done. The hall was buzzing when we walked in together. Conversations quieted. I followed. Olivia sat in the front row, arms crossed like a judge. Noah hovered behind her, silent as ever. Ava stood by the podium, ready to strike. She didn't waste time. We've always valued respectability here, she began, her tone sharp, but dressed in false sweetness. But lately, some choices have raised concern. Choices that may not set the right example for our community. Her eyes slid toward Emma. Then, to me, the implication was clear. The weight in the room pressed on my chest. I saw Emma shrink beside me, her strength flickering. And then I realized if I stayed silent, we'd both lose. I stood. My voice was rough at first, but the words came. Enough. The room stilled. You think you know her? You don't. You think you're protecting morality? You're not. You're tearing down someone who's already carried more than any of you will ever understand. Emma is kind. She is strong. She deserves respect. Not your whispers. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some neighbors lowered their eyes. Noah shifted uncomfortably. For the first time, Ava's smirk faltered. Beside me, Emma's eyes glistened. She whispered so only I could hear. You didn't have to do that? Yes, I said quietly. I did. We walked out before anyone could reply. The cool night wrapped around us, the street lights casting long shadows. Outside, away from the hall's noise, she stopped and turned to me. Her voice was soft, fragile. When I told you that you'd have been a wonderful husband, I meant it. But tonight, when you stood there, when you didn't walk away, Liam, you proved it. Her hand slipped into mine. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of everything we had endured. Whispers, judgment, fear, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we had something worth fighting for. We didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe the gossip would fade, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe we'd weather the storm together. Or maybe life would pull us apart. But as we walked down the quiet street side by side, I knew one truth with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, Neither of us was alone anymore.